Franchise Morning. Welcome. It's the D Train. Daniel Ehrenberg. And here's Henry Papali over there in New Jersey. And we're going to talk about a movie about people talking. Let's endeavor to make this episode shorter than the movie. I wouldn't want a podcast with the same premise as the movie, two people talking and falling in love, to be longer than the movie.
Right. Okay. I mean, I can understand that logic. Yeah. I don't see why that would be an issue. I mean, we never just have issues with that. So this is going to be easy.
Oh, was our last episode not 2 hours and 20 minutes long for no reason?
It was up there. I occasionally, folks, go through our little list of episodes, and I check to see the record holder. And I did that last week, and we were still not. It was still not the longest.
What's the longest?
But, I don't remember now.
Oh.
I think it was I think it was the episode we did with Martha on Harry Potter.
Holy shit!
And the Prisoner of Azkaban. I think that's still the record holder. There's a Batman episode that's very, very close as well. But yeah, that's interesting because it's the ones you don't think. I mean, I don't remember that episode being that long.
No. But, well, what a joy it is to speak to Martha, and it really,
that's all it was.
It flows. Yeah.
That's all it was.
All right, this week, gang, we're covering Before Sunrise by Richard Linklater. We're going to be talking about the indie cinema movement of the 90s. So if you came to hear us talk about fucking Rambo or something, like, come back in a couple weeks. We'll be covering a fucking hack and slash movie.
Hack and slash movie. Yeah, Dan,
which is still undecided by us.
I was just going to say, Dan and I are getting, we're still, I got a couple emails and stuff. What are we doing? Suggestions. But patience, folks, patience. You know, the masters have to discuss this. We haven't
the
had
masters,
one
Jesus. We both got green blazers over here.
Mine is blue plaid. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow, that's stylish.
But we do have black T-shirts, both of us.
Oh, I was referring to the green blazers you win as a winner of the Masters golf tournament.
Wow. Holy shit. What a esoteric okay, yeah, I don't know golf. Yeah.
Well, I want to, this is a week where we're talking about the world of indie cinema, so I wanted to get a little more highfalutin.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure that there's a lot of golf aficionados who do watch movies like Before Sunrise.
This is episode number 172 of the franchise. That it is. And let's do it. Let's get right into it. Hank, very rarely do we watch movies for the podcast where my impulse is to talk about them immediately after finishing the movie. And when I was done with Before Sunrise, I was sitting there, tear-streaked, and I was ready to spend 2 hours talking about this.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you mean, and I watched it last night, and I had the same impulse. It's spoiler alert, folks. We both love this movie. Now,
it's better than I remembered.
Well, now, I had never seen this movie until about 8.5 years ago, or longer, almost 9, probably 9 years ago, when Dan gave me my famous Boxo videos.
Oh, right. I had a VHS of this one.
And I had never seen this. And so I watched it back then in my old Bronx apartment, and I fucking loved it. And didn't quite know how it had always escaped me. And I absolutely loved it. And I haven't seen it since then.
The last time I watched this movie, I was about, I think, the age that Ethan Hawke is in the movie, and I always related to that character very heavily, and now watching it, I didn't relate to it as much, and it made it more powerful because now I felt like I was looking back upon myself, like, wow, like I was watching a version of myself that once existed and doesn't anymore.
I think that is also a testament to the power of the writing by Linklater and the acting by Hawke, because guess what? I felt the same way.
Okay.
And obviously every man is going to look at it a little differently, but I think there's definitely aspects to that character that I was looking back. I mean, let me just write 5 words I wrote down just while watching the movie. It was painful, heartache, true, nostalgia, memories, and youth. You know.
Here's something I wrote during this movie. That's why I watch movies.
Oh, Joel Siegel was writing a review. That's why I go to the movies. Mm. Yeah, no, I understand, and yeah, a lot of it. There was a lot in there that I was like, my God, that some of the stuff in there was just. I mean, if you've ever had a romantic evening, it doesn't have to be in Europe. But
have you
in Europe?
Have you had a romantic evening like this, like meeting a stranger? Because I was trying to think of it. I feel like I've had nights like this, but I've never seen the girl again.
Yeah, I have definitely had nights like this with strangers and making that much of a connection. Not so much. I've definitely, but with women that I think about in my past, especially like in my college years.
Yeah.
Like where you go and you're talking all night, and I definitely thought of a couple of specific things, and I think that's what made it also painful, and a lot of it related to what Ethan Hawke says to Julie Delpy on the train about, this is the moment where, we get off the train and then you're going to get married to some guy, and you're going to always regret if you never talk to that one guy, and just to see what it's like. And then it was very powerful, and I think that's our age. I think you think back and you're like, oh my God, sure. I've walked around the city and roamed different cities in my time with girls, and it's a lot of memories and stuff like that.
Life is long. Sometimes it's too much. I've been through too much. I've met too many people. I've had too many experiences. And I'm only 33. I can't fit it in my brain sometimes. I can't handle the emotion of having gone through all of it. I mean, I was going through so many. I was remembering this one night in college. It was after college, but very soon after college. And, we talked all night, and then we fell asleep for a couple hours, and then we took the subway the next morning, and we never talked to each other again.
Yeah.
I ran into her on the street once, and I was with a girlfriend. And then there was one where I spent all night on the phone. That was another thing. Just walking around on the phone, falling in love. That's a weird feeling.
Yes. I mean, I think it's a movie that just really fucking nails just kind of being in love, having that amazing connection. And
getting to know somebody and slowly realizing that they're an important person in your life.
Absolutely. No matter the duration, really.
Yeah.
No matter the duration. And I think that's it's so affecting. And both the performances are just really so superb. And it's funny. It's touching. It's funny. It's dramatic. It's romantic. It's just a hell of a movie.
All right, so let's wrap up. 5 stars. MVP. Those two guys who are going to be in the play about the cow. LVP. The palm reader.
Oh, you actually helped me out a little bit.
I'm just joking.
Because I didn't have an LVP.
Yeah, I was having a hard time coming up with an LVP myself.
I wrote none. Yeah.
I figured one out.
Ooh.
Henry, before we get into the intricacies of Before Sunrise, shall we do one of these lists? We decided, a Julie Delpy list. I was looking at her movies. It's just impossible. But
impossible. Yeah.
We're gonna do the two bros, Richard Linklater and Ethan Hawke.
And of course, next week would have been a little better for me because I've seen Before Midnight, never saw Before Sunset.
Oh, weird. You're filling in the middle chapter.
Very odd. Yeah. I'm excited. But yeah, because I saw Before Midnight on my love for Before Sunrise, but for some reason I knew I needed to see Sunset, but I just never did. So anyway, doesn't matter. I still had 25 Ethan Hawke movies.
Oh, you want to start with Ethan Hawke?
No, I don't care. And not only 9 Linklater films.
Okay.
What do you want to do first?
Up to you. I don't give a shit.
Let's do Linklater. It's shorter. We'll get him out of the way.
Okay. I've, of course, seen all 20 of his films.
All right, then I'm glad we're doing that first, because we can finish strong with how many Hawk movies?
I've fewer than you, actually. I only have 23.
Okay. Get and talk about a little bit why you love this Mr. Linklater so much.
Richard Linklater, from out of Austin, Texas. It was just near and dear to my heart as listen. I came of age in the 90s. The 90s were the decade I got into film, and the films I was interested in were the small independent films of the moment. I was really fascinated by the idea that you could make movies. You know, when you're a kid, all you watch are like the big animated movies or the big action movies or whatever. And so then, like, when I was getting interested in cinema, and I realized, like, you could make movies for, like, under $5 million and have them be way more fascinating and way more sort of emotionally vexing than the stuff Hollywood was putting out, that's what I really glommed onto. And Richard Linklater was a huge part of that, because Richard Linklater's films at the time were largely about people hanging around suburbia discussing what to do about that. And that was my life. And so I love this guy. I love that he was a jock who injured himself, and so instead of playing baseball, made a tiny little movie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's...
He was a baseball player?
Yeah, the character played by Jeremy London, he's a football player in Dazed and Confused, is based on Linklater.
Oh.
And, Everybody Wants Some is about a college baseball team. He's very interested, and he still has a connection to sports. Which I also like, because, a lot of independent filmmakers are guys like Jim Jarmusch, who, like, if I would love to watch him try to throw a baseball.
Yeah. They look like the kind of guys who definitely shun, I don't really, baseball. It's such a macho thing, masculine football, So it is refreshing to see Richard Linklater. Go ahead. I can see you about to.
No, I like what you're saying. I agree with that. Yeah, sports ball. I like Richard Linklater. To me, just seems like a normal guy with a lot on his mind.
I like it too, yeah.
I really appreciate that. And over the years, he's become a really diverse filmmaker. I'm looking at the movies on this list, and, like, they all have the same style. He definitely has a style, but, like, you never know what this fucking guy is going to put out.
Yeah, and I have a gap. I mean, I haven't seen a movie of his since Boyhood, and I know he's been pretty prolific lately, and
he's always prolific.
Yeah, but it's interesting. We'll get to it when we get to my list of I'm realizing just now when I'm looking at my list what the first Linklater movie I ever saw was, and it's very, very strange. And I saw it in theaters.
The Newton Boys?
No.
Okay.
I haven't seen some of that. A lot of it. Well, as you said, I've only seen 9 things. So let's get to it.
So we're gonna rank all the Richard Linklater movies. I'll get started, and Hank will join in with me. I'll say that none of these movies for me get under a 3. I love him.
Yeah, I have like one. My number 9 is like a 2. Everything else is a 3 to a 4 or 5. So yeah, that's 8.
And I'll also say I made this list before rewatching Before Sunrise.
Okay, but what you just said, that I don't think that's ever happened on this show. I mean that. You have 20 movies,
Yeah.
and none of them are below a 3?
No.
Wow. Okay. I don't think I've ever had that experience ranking any director here.
So
well, maybe Nolan or Fincher.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So the list is subject to change here. I'll rank the before movies next week, of course, and we'll talk about it then. Number 20 for me is worst movie. Me and Orson Welles. This is before. He has Zac Efron in the lead role in that movie, and he hasn't figured out acting yet. And it's an interesting little period piece, but I didn't glean that much from it. It's one of the only Richard Linklater movies I feel like I don't ever want to watch again.
Okay, but not a terrible movie.
No, it's totally fine. The guy playing Orson Welles is really good.
And also, you saw it. Zac Efron, he plays a good Ted Bundy.
Zac Efron, right. No, I feel like Zac Efron's figured it out. I like him in that movie, and I like him in the Jump Street. I think he's good at comedy at this point. But yeah, this is 2008. It's High School Musical era Zac Efron.
Right. Yep.
Number 19 for me, this was his first stab at trying to make a studio movie. It didn't go that great for him, but it's got some good performances, and it's a fun time, and that's the aforementioned The Newton Boys.
All right. I remember when that came out, and I had no interest at all. But
a Western. Number 18 is his latest film, which is just okay, but Cate Blanchett's great in it, and I enjoyed watching it. Where'd You Go, Bernadette is the name.
Oh, okay. All right.
My number 17 is his remake of The Bad News Bears, another sign that he's interested in baseball.
Okay, yeah, didn't see it.
Yeah. Number 16 for me is his first film, his pre-Slacker movie, which he made as it was like a college project, but I've watched it. It's called It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books.
Okay.
And that's sort of, how Nolan's first movie is Memento, but then he's got Following.
Well, Following was first.
No, I know Following was first, but it's barely a movie.
Yeah, okay, so
that's what I'm saying.
But it's amazing.
This is his Following.
Okay, all right.
Number 15 for me is his Philip K. Dick adaptation, which is with his rotoscoping animation technique, which he helped pioneer. I mean, this is an indie guy pioneering animation techniques. I love Richard Linklater. Number 15 is A Scanner Darkly.
I'm going to let Dan fawn and drool the whole episode.
No problem.
It's fine. Yeah, Scanner Darkly passed.
14 is the other one. I considered suggesting we cover it for this project because Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke show up in it for a second as their characters from Before Sunrise. But whatever, they're only in it for a minute. And this is Waking Life.
Yes, I saw it. Yeah.
Number 13, one of his more recent films, I thought was actually very good, and obviously the cast was amazing. Bryan Cranston, Steve Carell, Lawrence Fishburne doing some of the better late-period Lawrence Fishburne work, and that's Last Flag Flying.
Yeah, I had that on my Netflix queue for a while, and then I took it off. It reminds me of something I think that has always bothered me, and I guess it's not Linklater's fault. I feel like sometimes his movies are just, they do not know how to market him. And so sometimes I see
he also doesn't give a shit about being commercial.
Right.
I mean, there's no way people were going to go see that fucking movie. There's no chance. No. But it was really good.
My point is that a lot of times I don't follow him, so he's not somebody who I'm looking to see. And then Where'd You Go, Bernadette, and Last Flag Flying, I had no idea they were his movies until after they were out of theaters. You know what I mean? Or Where'd You Go, Bernadette is still in theaters, and I didn't know until you told me a couple of weeks ago, or whenever you told me you saw it. So I don't know. He's a very strange figure in that way, where which is cool because he does so many diverse.
But the one thing I like about him is he doesn't flit around a lot. Usually, once he announces a movie, he makes it. It comes out a year later.
Yeah.
So where'd you go, Bernadette? Like I saw just like it was upcoming on his IMDb page, and like I was waiting for it.
See, I saw it as a trailer to a movie that looked awful. Mm-hmm. No idea it was Richard Linklater, and that colored my view.
Yeah,
see it.
I'm a little surprised by that. Now that he did Boyhood, I feel like in front of his movies they should just be saying, "From the guy who brought you Boyhood."
Yeah, it's true. I don't know.
Yeah. My number 12 is one of his smaller sort of chamber pieces, and that is another Ethan Hawke project with Uma Thurman called Tape.
Oh, wow. Very, very high on my list.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're on 4s and 5s at this point. My number 11 is a movie I was not excited about when he announced it because I'd read the book and I always thought that like nonfiction books being made into fictionalized movies don't work, but this one fucking did. So number 11, that's Fast Food Nation.
I didn't see it. Okay.
Top 10. My number 10 is his relatively recent sort of pseudo spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused. That was Everybody Wants Some.
Okay. I will join in now with number 9. This is probably, I did not like this movie. I saw it in college and I found it distracting and ponderous. And I found it the opposite of what I believe he completely achieves in Before Sunrise. And that is number 9 for me, Waking Life.
I don't think Waking Life is what he's trying to do in Before Sunrise. I think Waking Life is more of an elliptical kind of this is what dreams can feel like.
Yeah, but for me, it just came across as pretentious. Elliptical is a good word to use, but for me, for my take on it, is the euphemism for pontificating endlessly in an unwatchable format. I understand that it's a unique movie visually, but it just does not work for me.
Okay.
Didn't like it.
My number 9, and I feel like a fucking idiot for this because I feel like it's gonna be higher. I have Before Sunrise here.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Again, well, I made this list before I watched the movie.
That's also you love him very much, so it's going to reflect different things for us. Number 8, a movie I watched pretty much under duress because it was an Oscar contender, and Dan made me watch it. And it's a good movie, but again, I think it's way too long and too he kind of gets up his own ass, and I think it did not work for me. But it's still 3 stars, and that is Boyhood.
Richard Linklater's a man who spends a lot of time up his own ass, and I really don't mind that about him.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I have some of my guys definitely do that, and I don't mind it, and you can't stand it. So this sometimes when.
But your guys do it a different way. Your guys like Nolan.
Here we go.
No. I just mean like Nolan. He's very thoughtful, and so like his whole thing is like you walk out of his movie going like, well, did the top fall down? What what's going on? Like it's a puzzle box. Like let's discuss what happened in that movie and how and why. Whereas I feel like Richard Linklater's movies often literally are just characters talking at each other about philosophical ideals.
Yeah, it's philosophical ideals, and with that, like in normal conversations, sometimes there's fascinating stuff, and the pitfall is sometimes there's banal stuff, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay. Number 8 for me is one of my favorite latter day Linklater projects, which I felt should have gotten more awards attention than it did, and it did get a little bit, and that's Bernie.
That's my number 7. I thought Bernie was great. Yeah.
My number 7 is his Eric Bogosian adaptation, still not available on anything but VHS for some fucking reason, and that's Suburbia.
Wow, that's not available in any format?
Nope.
The fuck is that about? All right.
I would have included it in that box of VHS tapes because I do own it, but that was the only thing it was available on.
Wow. Okay. My number 6 is a movie I did not see when it came out. I was a teenager when it came out, but I didn't see it till my 20s. I'm not as nuts about it as all my friends are, but it's very funny and it's very good. Gets a zeitgeist correctly, I believe. That is Dazed and Confused.
My number 6 is, the film that put him on the map. He made it on the cheap, and it's really a beautiful movie that more people should see. It's on the Criterion Collection, but at the time, it did inspire a lot of movies. I feel like a lot of the independent film movement was brought upon by like Slacker and Jarmusch's Stranger Than Paradise. Like those were like the checkpoints.
Okay.
And that's Slacker. Yeah.
Yeah. Never saw it. That was in my box of videos, but didn't see it. All right, here we go, folks.
Heavy hitters. These are the grand slams, the slap shots, the three-pointers, the touchdowns, the curling when the puck gets close to the circle. These are the heavy hitters of the franchise. Heavy hitters.
All right. Now, I can't remember the year of this movie because I saw this movie in 1997, so it was clearly a theater re-release. I saw it at the Melwood Theater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it was my first Richard Linklater experience. And I fucking laughed my ass off, and I have never seen it since. That's right, Suburbia.
Oh, great. Yeah. My number 5 is, this is a mainstream movie. This is not like in the Richard Linklater wheelhouse, but like, fuck it. I think it's one of the best comedies of its decade. It makes me laugh endlessly. Still, it's very rewatchable, and that is School of Rock.
That's my number 4.
Okay. My number 4 is Before Sunset.
Okay. My number 3 is Before Midnight.
That's my number 3.
Okay.
And so there's my before ranking, before rewatching the series. But, I remembered Before Sunrise being, like, somehow worse than those other two. And it's not. It's maybe better.
I know. I mean, I watched Before Midnight about 6 years ago, very soon after it came out, and I don't know. I'm gonna rewatch it, but pretty hard to top Before Sunrise. But anyway, my number 2 movie. I remember seeing this in college. Just I don't know, it was on HBO or something, and this movie just blew me away, and it's really fucking good. And that is Tape.
Yeah, shoot, cool. My number 2 is the movie he should have won Best Picture for, and that's Boyhood.
Okay. What beat it that year?
Oh, a little film called Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance.
Ooh. Okay. A little bit more clear now.
Why I Hate Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That makes it a little more understandable. Okay, I understand that. Something you love was beaten by something you already didn't like.
Yeah, one of the best filmmakers in the world who'd been toiling in obscurity for about 30 years finally gets recognized by the Academy and gets beaten by that piece of shit.
I understand. Okay. And the best Richard Linklater movie I've ever seen in my life this was easy. I wrote this before I did the other 8, and that is Before Sunrise.
Okay, and my number 1 is, to me, his masterpiece, and probably one of my 10 favorite movies ever made. And I've watched it upwards of 50 times. I don't rewatch stuff, but I watch the fuck out of this. A year has not gone by without me watching this movie since I saw it for the first time, and that is Dazed and Confused.
Okay. Yeah. I think when we lived together, that would be on in the background
of course.
Sometimes. Yeah. All right.
That's Ricky Lynx. Should we talk about his leading man, Ethan Hawke?
A man who I've met a couple of times, rang him up, helped him, ordered him a copy of the soundtrack to The Big Lebowski.
Really?
Yeah, let me tell it real quick, 'cause it's
that makes
a fun
me like
one.
him less. All right, go ahead.
Well, he never picked it up.
Of course.
Yeah. He came in the store. This is when I worked in Chelsea, and very, very filthy looking, dirty fingernails.
Always.
Dirty.
When I met him, he was fucking disgusting too. He smelled.
Yeah. He. I don't think he'd bathed in a while. I believe he was living at the Chelsea Hotel. Maybe Uma had kicked him out by that point. He was with his kids, and they were running around. And he came up to me at the register, and he goes, "Hey man, have you seen The Big Lebowski?" I said, "Have I? I love it. Yes, yes." And he goes, "There's a song in the opening. It's like sounds a Bob Dylan song, and I don't know what it's." And I go, and I, who do not like Bob Dylan, of course, knew exactly what he meant. And I said, "Oh, The Man in Me." And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He's like, "Can I have that soundtrack?" I was like, "Yep." Looked it up, didn't have it. I said, "I can order it for you." He said, "Sure." I look at him and I go, "Name?"
Oh, why'd you do that? You should have been like, I guess.
I smirked when I said it, and we had kind of a glance at each other. It was like he knew that I knew, but I was just trying to go through the motions. So
sure.
He said like Hawk and Ethan Hawke, and I said I did have to ask him his address, and he gave me the Chelsea Hotel.
Oh,
and
weird.
So, yeah, and so I ordered it. I also sold him a membership.
Oh, you did? Ethan Hawke bought a Barnes & Noble membership from you?
The fucking millionaire. He didn't give a shit. Yeah, and so I ordered it, and he never came and got it. It sat there. It sat there in the corner with Hawk on it for like the 2 week period, and he never picked it up.
Yeah, but how many times do you think he used that 10% discount, baby?
Anyway, cool guy though, very nice, very down to earth. How did you meet him? What was your little experience?
I ran into him in a bar. He was
Holy shit, I forgot that. Yeah, tell that.
Yeah, he was in a bar in Chelsea. I was there with a girl actually. We stopped in to use the bathroom but we ended up getting a drink. And Ethan Hawke was sitting by himself in like a corner booth in the back. And it was a crowded bar, and women would just like stop and talk to him two at a time, and then leave, and then be replaced by other women.
Wow!
And he came up to the bar to get another drink, and I said something to him. I was like half drunk. I must have just said like I love Before Sunrise or something. And he thanked me, but I smelled him. Like he smelled like BO.
Yeah,
he looked dirty. Like when when Julie Delpy rips on him in Before Sunrise that his hair is greasy, I was like, you ain't seen nothing, Julie Delpy.
Yeah, right. I mean, I remember specifically like his fingernails, and he was like fiddling with his wallet, and they had like, I guess I gave him the benefit of the doubt, thinking he might have been in a play or something,
or like painting.
Yeah, it looked like paint or like shit all over his fingernails, but whatever, man. He was a really nice guy, and anyway, I've always liked Ethan Hawke as an actor, and never had, it always just kind of grew on me. So I'm always
he's
interested.
A good actor. I feel like these days he's showing up in a lot of sort of like schlock, and it's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, I think he went through a weird period, right? I mean, I don't think he was taken very seriously for quite a while. And then I feel like Gattaca went unnoticed, and then Training Day kind of was like, oh.
That was the Denzel show, though. People didn't... If you bring up Training Day to somebody today, I feel like a lot of people don't remember Ethan Hawke's in that movie.
I think that's still the way they feel, because I don't know. I mean, but for me, I'm saying, for me, when Ethan Hawke did that, even I was like, oh shit, okay. And then I feel like he had a good period of like a decade.
I think Reality Bites killed his career. As fine as that movie is, and as good a role as it was for him, that character, I think people thought that's who Ethan Hawke was for a long time.
I never saw Reality Bites.
Well, that's helpful to you then.
Yeah, I think I hear what you mean, but yeah. Is his character just like a Gen Xer type thing, and they just
Yeah, he's like the coolest guy in the world. It's almost like a parody of a cool guy, intentionally. Yeah. I'm not like talking shit, right. But yeah, and the whole movie, he's just like in a white T-shirt and jeans, smoking a cigarette with like his hair perfect, and he sings a folk song in it that he wrote called "I'm Nothing." And I had the Reality Bites soundtrack, and it had an Ethan Hawke song on it.
Oh boy, yeah. I remember when that movie came out. It didn't appeal to me, and oddly, it doesn't appeal to me now.
It appealed to me. I was into Gen X, man. I wanted to be part of that generation, and like I was obsessed with like Winona Ryder, and it had like young Ben Stiller in it. Like I was into that movie, and it had like a weird documentary aesthetic. I watched that movie a bunch as a kid.
What year did that come out?
94.
Yeah, see, that's when I was like really getting into more like Kubrick and my whole arty phase. I didn't care about that kind of shit at all. At all.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I was a total fucking snob. Absolutely. That never left. All right, here we go. 25. The worst Ethan Hawke movie, and I am definitely trying to do more these days since Arnold. I'm trying to make a point of doing the movie as opposed to the performance. I think it's more helpful. I knew you'd like that. But I think it's easier on me, too. Yeah, I hate this fucking movie. I wish it didn't exist. Number 25, Dead Poets Society.
Yeah, fuck that movie, bro. My 20. Oh, sorry, I'm not in yet. I'm not used to this. I'm not used to you having more than me.
It's only happened a few times. Number 24. Oh, I saw it in theaters. I was excited for it because I liked the director. I liked every cast member, and it is fucking unwatchable. That is the remake of The Magnificent Seven.
Oh God. You always talk. No movie has been trashed on this podcast as much as that movie, and we've never covered it.
And we could.
Yeah, we could. All right, 23. Oh, should I come in here?
Yeah.
23 for me, 23 and me, is a documentary that he appears in. I put it last place. I really didn't like this. I saw it because it's a documentary about Richard Linklater, and I thought they did a very poor job of representing him as a filmmaker. And the documentary is called 21 Years, The Films of Richard Linklater or something. And Ethan Hawke is obviously interviewed in it heavily because he was involved in Tape and the Before movies and Boyhood, I just really hated that documentary, so that's my number 23.
That is one of the most disappointing things that ever happens, is when a documentary of somebody you love finally happens, and it's no good.
I know. It happens a bunch. Or it like does. A story you love. Like, I've always been fascinated by that Superman movie that never got made with Nick Cage and Tim Burton and shit. And then they made a documentary about it, and I was so excited, and it sucks.
It does suck. I saw it too. It's fucking terrible. Yeah, I'm with you. All right, my number 23. This is by one of the great filmmakers of today, but this movie sucks. I think he's just completely lost in this world. And everybody in the movie's lost, and that is number 23, Great Expectations by Alfonso Cuarón.
Oh, it's not nearly that bad. I have that like significantly higher. Oh, not significantly, I guess, but like a bit.
Yeah.
My number 22 is the worst scripted film he's ever been in, and that's called The Dead Poets Society.
Yeah, bad movie. Number 22 for me, this is probably a little harsh looking at the things that are above it, because they're not better, but I was just, I don't know. It's fine where it is, 22. Because there's a lot of Ethan Hawke movies here that are very, very high, very good movies, 3-star and above. This is not one of them. That is Waking Life.
Right. My number 21 is a schlocky little serial killer movie he did. It's one of those post-Seven movies. I feel like for like 5 or 6 years after Seven, like everything was just like some fucking weird serial killer.
Absolutely.
And this is one of those, and it's him and Angelina Jolie in a movie called Taking Lives.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Number 21, this is pure nostalgia, even though I don't remember anything about it. It came out when I was 7, and I feel like I watched it 300 times in my youth. That is Explorers.
I've never seen Explorers. It's a Joe Dante movie?
Probably.
Did I make that up?
No idea. No, that sounds right. I don't know. I just remember it was a big part of my childhood, but I no desire to see it again.
All right, my number 20 is a movie that Henry forced me to watch for this podcast, and I did not care for it, and it's called The Purge.
Forced you to watch. Right, much higher on my list. Number 20, I have 2 on here. I have no idea why I watched. I probably because Ethan Hawke was in them, honestly. I believe I saw this on HBO. This is a movie called Good Kill.
That's where we're going to part ways, man. Like, I would never watch that.
Yeah, I don't know why I did. It's clearly, I can always tell now.
What the fuck is it?
I can always tell now, pre-Netflix Henry and post-Netflix Henry. This is when I had nothing to watch. I left New York. I didn't have an outlet to watch anything, so I just watched shit. I believe he's like a fucking army guy who controls drones or some shit. A
family man begins to question the ethics of his job as a drone pilot. Fucking snooze patrol, dude.
Yeah.
Hey, well, it's directed by the guy that directed Gattaca, though.
Maybe that's one of the reasons I watched it. Is that Andrew Niccol?
Yeah. He also wrote The Truman Show.
Well, that could have been one of the reasons. Yeah, all right, that's 20.
Okay, 19 for me is a movie that had a lot of good ideas that didn't come together. I felt like this movie had potential at the very least, and that's a little vampire movie he was in called Daybreakers.
Oh, much higher on my list. Okay. Number 19, I don't even remember him in this, but it's a pretty bad remake. Not the worst remake of anything I've ever seen, but pretty fucking terrible, and that is Total Recall.
Yeah, I didn't see that. My number 18, his Richard Linklater movie, The Newton Boys. There's going to be a ton of Richard Linklater movies on this list.
Obviously. And here we go with number 18, another one sort of like Good Kill. This is the other one I saw. Don't really know why, but I remember it being better. And that is, I think he's like just kind of a chase movie. And it's him and this girl in a car driving a lot. And that is Getaway.
I remember when that came out. That was a movie I saw. I remember seeing a trailer for that movie and thinking, what's happened?
Yes.
Ethan, what's happened?
Definitely.
And unfortunately, that was just the first of many of these types of movies that he has now made. But yeah, I skipped that one. Like
it was a wise move.
Thanks. My number 17 is The Great Expectations, the Cuarón thing.
Yeah. My number 17 is a movie I saw in theaters, and I Rebecca Miller, Arthur Miller's daughter and Daniel Day-Lewis's wife, directed.
Oh, yes. One of our finest filmmakers. Yeah, you go through Daniel Day-Lewis's career, he really does only work with the best, right? Paul Thomas Anderson, Steven Spielberg, okay?
Martin Scorsese.
Jim Sheridan, Rebecca Miller.
Yeah. Well,
we get it, dude. You got to keep that dick moist.
Look. You would like this movie more than me. I don't know if you saw it. I don't recall. I did not like it. Talk about ponderous. This is everything I don't like in an independent movie, and everything a lot of people do like. That is Greta Gerwig in Maggie's Plan.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. My number 16 we're up to?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's one of his earlier movies, a pretty fun survival film called Alive.
That's coming up very shortly in my list.
I was fascinated by that as a kid. I feel like I would talk about that all the time. I was just like a 10-year-old going like, they ate each other on those mountains. Like,
hey man, I was older than you and I saw it in theaters, and so we've talked about it before on this show. I don't remember why. Maybe on our Malkovich ratings. I don't know.
I still want to eat people, Henry. Have I talked about this on the podcast?
I can't say that I recall a cannibal conversation.
That's on my bucket list.
Really? Yeah.
I want to, not like in a weird way.
No, not in a weird way.
I want to I feel like there's probably like underground restaurants that like you could go into after hours and there's like some sort of fancy chef preparing human meat.
Right. Well, you're in the right city. I'm sure that it's happening where you live. It's somewhere. If you would like to do it legally, I am almost positive there are continents in this world where that is still being done.
No, but I don't want it like cooked, as like a shish kebab over a fire.
You want like a gourmet experience.
That's right. I want like a, human three ways. That's with a touch of something reduction. I don't know. Braised human.
Wow.
With a bed of cumin.
Braised human on a bed of cumin. Okay. Yeah. All right.
That doesn't make sense. A bed of cumin. But I've always felt that way. I really do. I'd love to chow down on some human meat.
Okay.
If someone could set that up for me.
Yeah.
Just once. I just want to try it.
Okay. Hey, we all have our quirks.
All right. What's number 13? What are you, 14?
16.
Right. Fuck it.
Cannibalism will do that to you. It does make you go insane. Number 16 is Boyhood.
Oh, Jesus. My number 15 is a Nicolas Cage film that he appears in, which I really like, and that's called Lord of War.
That's a great fucking movie, and it's way higher on my list. All right. Number 15 for me is Alive.
My number 14 is the aforementioned Reality Bites.
My number 14 is a movie I saw in theaters. I was a young teenager, and it made a great impression on me, though I don't remember really why. I think I was too young to see this, and I would like to see it again. That is a movie called A Midnight Clear.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. My number 13, he shows up in Robert Redford's quiz show.
I didn't count that.
Why not?
Yeah, I thought it was like one of those uncredited cameos.
Oh, he's in there.
Is he really?
He doesn't have like a big role, but like he's in there.
Oh boy, I skipped over it. I was like, okay, I like Quiz Show. I didn't put it on my list. Whatever.
That's a movie that was very famous among my high school because there was this insane substitute teacher in my high school who's this like old eccentric weirdo named Mr. Silver, and he had one line of dialogue in Quiz Show, and he would talk about it all the time.
That's irritating. Wow.
No, it wasn't irritating. It was funny. And so I think I saw that movie for the first time just to look out for Mr. Silver.
Sure, I get it. Yeah. I get it. All right. My number 13 is a movie I'm pretty sure Dan hates. In fact, I think we argued about it in New York when I saw it, and I said I liked it quite a lot. That is the remake of the classic movie, of course, but I like this remake, Assault on Precinct 13.
I didn't include it because I never watched the whole thing. I tried to watch it, and I didn't like it, and I shut it off pretty early in the movie. So, okay. Who made that?
Right. That's good of you to do that, yeah. Oh, I should check. That's worth checking, right? Because I liked it. I actually got a free copy of it on DVD. I'll probably never watch it again. But
where'd you get a free copy of that on DVD?
Someplace I worked, there was like a box of DVDs. I just come across box o videos, box o DVDs. You know, people just give shit away. You know. Here we go.
It's because you're so avuncular. People want to help you out, Henry.
It's true. Oh, yes. The director was the famous Jean-Francois Richet.
Oh, that's Pitoff's brother.
Wait a minute. I know one movie he did. Didn't he? He did Mesrine. Isn't that famous?
Yeah, that's a thing.
I never saw it.
All right. My number 12 is Gattaca.
Ooh. Yeah, we have some divergencies on our lists.
Divergencies. Great
I think
word.
that's a word.
No.
Is that a word?
It's divergent says, or...
Divergent says. Neither word sounds real.
Divergences.
We have a divergency of our lists.
All right. What's your 12?
12 is a movie that I don't know why I watched it, but it was fun. I have a lot of I don't know why I watched it with Ethan Hawke, but this one turned out to be very good, and that is Daybreakers.
Yeah, okay,
it's good.
It's a little boring.
I didn't.
It's a little, and it's one of those movies that looks too chromy. Like everything's silver and gray.
Of course it does. It's a fucking post-Blade. It's a post-Blade vampire movie. Everything has to look chromy.
I'm not into that shit, man.
I understand.
My number 11 is his modern day version of Hamlet.
Great movie. What's
11, that guy's name?
I don't know.
No, I do. It's Almereyda. Michael Almereyda.
Okay.
Yeah.
My number 11 is a great horror movie, a very good horror movie. I don't think Dan's seen it, but he should, and that is Sinister.
Yeah, that's what you said about The Purge, man. My number 10 is Waking Life.
My number 10 is The Purge.
Ugh. My number 9 is Tape.
All right, now we're into 9 great movies for me. These 9 are great movies.
Yeah, mine are too. They're mostly Richard Linklater movies.
My number 9 is the great Nicolas Cage, Ethan Hawke team up, Lord of War.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a team up.
It's a team up.
All right, my number 8 is Fast Food Nation.
All right, my number 8 is Tape.
All right, here we'll diverge. I'll diverge here from Linklater. My number 7 is his really great but overlooked because it was in such a great year, Lumet film, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Oh, yes. Saw it in theaters. Great movie, and totally ignored. You're right. Number 7, Hamlet.
My number 6 is Before Sunrise.
My number 6 is Before Midnight.
Okay, my number 5 is Training Day. Which by the way, heavy hitters. I always remember Training Day. My favorite anecdote from Ethan Hawke's interview with Marc Maron was him talking about preparing for Training Day and watching Denzel Washington movies like it's game tape in football. I always love that because he didn't want to be swallowed by Denzel Washington's charisma.
I remember you telling me that story. That is great. That's great. My number 5 was a Dan recommendation that I don't think I would have really known about, or maybe I would have known about it, but not for a while. And that was the great movie, First Reformed.
Yeah. My number 4 is Before Sunset.
Okay. My number 4 is Training Day.
My number 3 is Before Midnight.
My number 3 is Gattaca.
My number 2 is Boyhood.
My number 2 is Before Sunrise.
I think the best movie he's ever been in is Paul Schrader's First Reformed. I was so blown away by that movie.
I figured that would be your number 1. My number 1, I have no problem with this. It's one of my favorite movies of that year. It's one of my favorite movies, period. I've rewatched it maybe 3 times, and he is so fucking great in it, and that is the great Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Yeah, great pick. All right, so let's talk. That's a Henry movie. That's a good Henry pick, number 1.
And his character's name is Henry.
Is that right?
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah.
Before Sunrise was directed by Richard Linklater. He co-wrote this picture with Kim Krizan, who was an Austin-based actress who is in Slacker and Dazed and Confused. He worked on the script with her and did some rewrites with Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, though they go uncredited in this one. They are credited in the next 2. Before Sunrise was released in theaters January 27th, 1995. It had a budget of $2.5 million. It made $5.5 million at the box office. It came in at number 145 for the year of 1995. Smack dab in the middle of Beyond Rangoon.
Is that a Patty Arquette vehicle?
It is, yeah. Before
Wow.
sunrise, beyond Rangoon, whatever. And it made a little bit more than Persuasion, which was a Jane Austen adaptation.
Oh yeah, right,
Okay.
right. We gonna skip over the 95 list?
It's up to you. I redid my 95 list, actually.
I swapped something out and put something in, so we can do that real quick.
Real
Blow
quick.
through it.
My honorable mentions here: Leaving Las Vegas, Billy Madison, Dead Presidents, To Die For, Clockers, Mighty Aphrodite, and Amateur.
Okay, my honorable mentions, being knocked off the list: Dead Man Walking, Crossing Guard, Safe, To Die For, The Addiction, Rob Roy, Smoke, and Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Rob Roy. My number 10 is Greg Araki's The Doom Generation.
My number 10, and this probably will be higher in the years to come. My number 10 is the Richard Linklater's Before Sunrise.
My number 9 is Before Sunrise, and holy fuck, that needs to be higher.
I just put it on.
I'm a goddamn idiot.
It was never on my list. And
Well,
now
that's
it is,
stupid. It was always on my
Well,
list, but it's always been
yeah.
around that point. All right, what's number 9 for you?
Living in Oblivion.
Great. My number 8 is Todd Haynes' Safe.
Number 8, Nixon.
Oh, Nick. Yeah, that's better. My number 7 is, of course, Terry Zwigoff's great documentary Crumb.
Of course, it's not on my. Still have that on. Yes, yeah, you know already. Probably on my 94 list, folks. All right, number 7, The Usual Suspects.
My number 6 is Clueless. It's climbing up the list.
Wow. All right. My number 6 is Mighty Aphrodite.
My number 5 is Living in Oblivion. Heavy hitters.
My number 5 is Casino.
My number 4 is, of course, Danny Boyle's debut film, Shallow Grave.
Which also I consider 1994.
I'm going with American release dates, ladies and gentlemen.
I know. No, you're right. You're correct, as per the rules of the show. Number 4, Leaving Las Vegas.
3 for me. Oh, really? You have Leaving Las? I gotta rewatch Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah, I rewatched it like 3 or 4 years ago. No, less than that. Maybe 2 years ago. It's amazing.
I've never watched it as a sober guy, and
Right.
I always remembered it being like a little bit over the top. But I know like Roger Ebert, who's a recovering alcoholic, said he thought it was the best movie about alcoholism ever made.
Yeah.
And so maybe I ought to rewatch.
It's
that.
really powerful movie. Yeah.
All right. My number 3 is Larry Clark and Harmony Korine's Kids.
Never saw it. Yeah. My number 3 is Braveheart.
My number 2 is Heat.
My number 2 is 7.
My number 1 is 7.
My number 1 is Heat.
Yep. Okay, let's finally
I
talk
have two
about
quick-
this fucking movie.
Just 2 really quick questions. You don't have Braveheart or Casino even as honorable mentions?
No.
Braveheart I get for the Mel shit. But what about Casino? No? Nothing?
I gotta say, I liked that movie better when it was called Goodfellas and didn't
Shut
have
up.
Sharon Stone in
Oh,
it.
for fuck's sake. All right.
Casino's fun. It's a really fun movie, but it's like an hour and 20 minutes too long, and Sharon Stone is in it, and, like, leave me alone.
Okay. All right. Before Sunrise.
It's
1
almost
hour.
more of a directing exercise for him. It's just like, look where I can put the camera. All right.
It's great.
Sunrise, we meet our main characters. His name's Jesse, right?
Yeah.
Her name's
James. Jesse James.
Jesse James, of course. And she's Celeste. And we meet them on a train in Europe going to Vienna, which is in Germany, right?
Oh, my God. You are geographically disabled. That's okay.
Was I right?
Vienna is in Austria.
Oh, right. I knew that. It's just that everyone's speaking German in this movie.
Yeah, Austrians speak German, a different dialect of German a little bit, but yes, Vienna, the creative home, not necessarily birthplace, but the creative home of Beethoven, Mozart, Brahms. I've never been to Vienna, but I've heard it's an amazing experience, and yes, Vienna.
I've never been out of the country. I could describe all the malls that I've been to in my life, and I could tell you all about the names of streets in New York that I've been to.
Yes. I have been to Europe twice. I have not been to Vienna, but it's fun. It's fun watching this movie having been to Europe, because you kind of do, like, I did like think about it more when I was watching it this time, because I kind of understood the sort of fish out of water look that Ethan Hawke even has, where he's kind of just has this, they're walking, and I think it's intentional, right? It's helping the movie, because Ethan Hawke is a guy walking around really kind of not paying attention to his surroundings because he's enraptured by Julie Delpy, but when he does, he's still very unfamiliar with what's around him. And I think it would change the movie greatly if they had stuck with, I believe, the original premise, which might have been taking place in the United States.
Well, Before Sunrise is based on a real experience that Richard Linklater had, where he met this woman, I believe, in Philadelphia.
A great city that I love very much. Yes.
The city of brotherly love and racism. And they talked all night, and he never saw her again. Then he apparently he wanted her to be at the. You know the story, Henry?
I know the end of it. I don't know what you're saying now. I only know the end result. I don't know any of this.
He made it very clear in the public that he wanted her to be at the opening, the premiere of Before Sunrise, and she didn't show up, and he was surprised by that, but he had no way to locate her because, unlike at the end of this movie, they just parted ways. And
these were pre-Facebook days where you could look people up and shit. Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't until years later, supposedly, I think 2010, where he finally found out through a friend of this woman that she died in a motorcycle accident at the age of 24 prior to the making of Before Sunrise.
That's the only part I knew, that she had died before the movie came out. I didn't know any of the other. Yeah, that's... Wow.
It's awful.
It really is awful. Jesus Christ.
What if this movie ended that way? Like, he shows up 6 months later to see her in Vienna, and she has perished in a motorcycle accident.
That would really... I honestly have to say that would destroy, I feel like, the entire point and the entire experience of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like one of those movies where, like, the main character dies at the end for no reason because they couldn't think of a better ending.
Yeah, that's how this movie would end if it were made today by somebody else.
This movie wouldn't be made today.
It's been attempted, I feel like.
No, it hasn't. What attempted this?
Every single romantic comedy that has seen this movie and
comedy?
Romantic drama that tries to have dialogue that's intelligent between a man and a woman where they first meet.
I can't think of one. This is a movie about two normal people talking.
It was a compliment to this movie. I was trying to say people emulate it, but you don't think they do.
I just don't think we're even close now. I don't think you could make a movie like this. It doesn't have a hook. Everything has to have a hook now. If this was a movie today, Ethan Hawke's character would turn out to be an alien from outer space, and she's showing him around the planet, and they're falling in love.
Yeah.
Also, he couldn't be played by Ethan Hawke because Ethan Hawke looks like a normal man. And now every man either has a baby head or is shredded to pieces. This character would be played by either as Zac Efron or Michael Cera. Today.
You're absolutely right. Actually, it's funny. There's a scene when they're on a bus or a trolley, as they have in Vienna, and he just takes his leather coat off for a little bit, and he's wearing his white T-shirt, and it's just a nothing moment. And I was like, that's cool. That was when we used to have actors with like normal bodies. It was just like a passing thought. I never thought of it again, but it was like, it happens every once in a while on this show when I'm watching movies. I'm like, oh yeah, that leading man was just like a guy.
Yeah, everything about this movie is like that. I mean, did you happen to notice, Henry, that both Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy's teeth are a little yellowed?
I did. More so him than her, but yeah.
I would say more so her than him, to be honest. But
French. Yeah, but also even her body, it's like a lovely, like, sort of just woman body. She's not ripped. She's not like...
They're both just people.
Yep.
I think that now you don't see yellow teeth in film, and to me it's a problem because most people don't have perfectly white teeth, and now because of the advent of HD and digital filming, like everybody has to look perfect because we're looking into their fucking pores.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, now you'd meet these people, they'd look fucking immaculate on a train, and with their teeth gleaming white in the sun, and he'd take off his leather jacket to reveal, fucking guns under there.
Well, this came up apropos of T2 and the first Terminator, where you get Michael Biehn and then you get Robert Patrick. Those two guys, just normal fucking looking dudes. That wouldn't be done. We brought it up before. So here's a completely different genre of movie, and it was still the same philosophy. And that's a big budget, and this is an indie, but that was still going on back then. So a nice little touch. And it wasn't a touch, right? It was just the way things were back then.
Yeah, it really, really is.
Thank you.
Okay. So they're on the train, and she's sitting next to this German couple, or possibly Austrian, and they start yelling. They start getting in a fight, and everyone could relate to this moment. Like you're sitting next to a fight happening on public transportation.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes
the worst, most uncomfortable thing.
Yeah, sometimes you've been the couple fighting. That's not pleasant either.
I love listening to fights. Anytime that happens, I pause whatever I'm listening to and pretend to still be listening, and I just listen to the fight.
Me too. Very, very true. I think that's pretty common. Yeah. And then are we going to go through like every scene chronologically?
They talk on the train, and then they go to the lounge car, and he tells her a story about seeing his dead great-grandmother through a mist of sprinkler. I love that scene.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just conversational. Like it's about the flow of conversation and comfortable silences. Like it really feels like what conversation is like, which you don't see a lot in movies, even great conversation movies. Great writers like David Mamet and Aaron Sorkin, they don't talk normal people.
No,
I feel like Richard Linklater endeavors to have conversations between smart but not too smart but still searching and still learning kinds of people, really talking to each other and trying to figure each other out.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask you a question because it's so natural. And then, knowing that Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy had a lot to do with the dialogue, I mean, it's so natural that when they say when they wrote the script with him, do you think that they sort of mean not necessarily on paper they wrote it, but in improvisation? I mean, what do you think
I used to think that, and then I read that there's actually very little improvisation in the before movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. Linklater found these two actors with, impossible. Like it hurts me that they're not together in real life.
Yeah, their chemistry really is something we've only come across a couple of times on this show. Maybe not. And I kept thinking like, boy, there's no way in real life they didn't hit it off. There's no way they didn't become romantically entangled because they really just work together. And it's amazing. and I agree with you. But the one thing I was going to say about some of their conversations too, which was part of the reason I wrote down, true and nostalgic and all that, was because I did find that some of the dialogue that they're having was like things that I would ruminate upon in my 20s and then dismiss later in life. And then also some of it doesn't age at all. Some of those are things that I would still say. And the interesting thing about the movie is I also felt the fluidity between the man and the woman. Like there were many times I was like relating to her. Yeah. And I didn't remember that from the first time I watched it.
I like that they don't they don't ignore the differences between men and women, but they also don't solve anything. Like differences between men and women come up multiple times in this movie, and I feel like every one of those conversations ends with them just saying like, "Well, fuck it, men and women, they're different." Julie Delpy says something like, people have been having these conversations since the beginning of time, and they never figured it out either.
Yeah, and I don't know if you experienced this, but there are a couple of things that were painful in a funny way, not painful in a heartache way, but were like when I was watching Ethan Hawke, like maybe in the scene where he's dismissing the palm reader, just for example, and I think when I was watching, I'm thinking, oh my God, was I like that? Was I like that on a date?
Yes, you were, and so was I, and. That is a perfect example of a scene where, when I was younger watching this movie, I would be like, good for you, fucking Jesse. You see through that shit. And now I watch it and I'm like, let her read the palm, dude. She's having fun.
It was very, very much more so for me. I just remembered more so for me than the palm reading when the poet gives them the poem and he's just like, he probably has that already read. And I was like,
but I like that that's later in the movie. Like they've already done the palm reading thing, and then when they meet like the street poet. Ethan Hawke knows that he shouldn't say anything, and that was actually a beautiful moment that they shared together. But then at the last second, he can't resist, and he smiles when he says it. And Delpy looks at him and smiles because she's getting to know him at that point, and she knows he can't resist.
That's right. And that's a great moment. But that was another.
Did I call her Celeste before? Her name's Celine.
Celine.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a moment where I was like, again, I was definitely like in my head, God damn it, Henry, you must have done that. You must have been that guy. You probably in certain ways still are. And that's kind of painful to watch. But like I said, then I was feeling better because there were certain scenes where she's talking and giving her spiel, and I was very much relating to her romanticism and idealism and things like that. And I tell you, one scene rather that made me laugh very hard is when they do the phone conversation.
That's when I wrote down, this is why I watch movies. They go into this restaurant. There's a really interesting opening to that scene where we sort of check in on strangers at other tables in the restaurant.
I love that.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. That's very, very Slacker. That's what.
And he pulls that off. I mean, that could really be viewed as a pretentious sort of moment. I feel in the wrong hands. But it works. It gives a context. It takes us out of for at least maybe 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds.
Because we're in this bubble. The whole movie, we're in this bubble with them. And it's this one weird moment in the movie where it's acknowledging like everybody's in a bubble. Look what's happening over there in that bubble.
Right. And I especially love the Americans.
Yeah, that's played by John Sloss, who was an acquisitions guy for Miramax.
I knew it had to be like somebody on the inside.
He was like a major guy for Miramax in the 90s. He went around to film festivals and bought movies for them. He's the guy that would like recommend shit for like, hey, Harvey and Bob, you should see this one.
Oh, okay. All right. Very funny. I don't know. They're talking about Viennese service.
I was going to give him my LVP, by the way, just because,
He didn't call out Harvey early enough.
We worked with Harv a lot. I bet he knew something.
Well, I had no LVP, so that's fine. Although he's great in his little sequence. I loved it.
He's totally good, yeah. So yeah, that's that scene though where she starts going bring bring, and it's her. She does a fake conversation with her friend at home about him, but she asks him to like play her friend, and then they do the same vice versa where he's talking to her as like a friend from home about her, and it's just this like really beautiful imaginative scene, and it's the kind of like weird thing couples do.
Absolutely.
It's hard to capture that sort of thing on film because all couples do weird shit together because all couples are in their little bubble. Like
that's right.
There are things you say to your girlfriend that like you would never say to anybody, and not because it's so personal, just because it's so goofy and weird.
That's right. And it's not contrived in the movie at all. The actors pull it off.
I think it's the best scene in the movie.
It could be.
It's so powerful to me.
Because
it's funny. It's funny and light, but everything they say about each other, because they're acting like the other person isn't there, because like ostensibly they're communicating with their loved one at home. It is just so honest and beautiful. I think it's the most honest. I think that's the moment where they're admitting to each other that they love each other.
I mean, that's possible for sure. I found the ending, of course, it sounds like a cop-out, but that was for me the most powerful, but we'll get there. We're not there yet. But I was just going to say when I started about that sequence, what made me really laugh, and this is what leads me to believe it had to be a little bit of improvisation on Julie Delpy, is when she answers the phone like, "Hey, dude."
I love that moment. Yeah. Julie Delpy's really funny. I don't know why she hasn't had a bigger career. I mean, she has had a big career in terms of like the indie world and foreign films and stuff. Yeah, she was discovered in the 80s by Godard.
Is that right?
Yeah, okay. She's in like her first role is in this Godard film. And then she got put in Europa, and that was sort of a breakout for her. And then, she's like this she's been a muse for certain filmmakers. Then Kieslowski put her in all the red,
right,
the Colors movies.
Well, and I was going to say that because we almost did those, or in my mind, I had, if we hadn't done this, I was really leaning towards doing the Kieslowski trilogy. And I know we will because we haven't done a foreign film yet, and I know people want that. But the one I mainly remember was White, and that's Julie Delpy's.
Well, she's in all three of them, but yeah, that's the one she's like the star of.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then she got put in this, and because of the Three Colors trilogy and this, Hollywood took notice of her and put her in An American Werewolf in Paris.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
We'll cover that one day. Which is kind of a fun movie, and I like it. And it's probably, to be honest, the first thing I ever saw Julie Delpy in, and I liked her in it. But I don't know. Her career just like never took off the way I felt it should have.
Isn't she in that, in my opinion, really bad Tarantino associated, but Tarantino ripoff Killing Zoe?
Oh, I don't think that's bad.
I do.
Yeah, she plays Zoe in Killing Zoe. Tarantino's only associated with that because Roger Avery wrote and directed it. He did that after Pulp Fiction. I don't mind that movie.
Yeah.
I think I like a Tarantino ripoff now. It's the kind of thing I hated a long time ago, and now I go back and watch it, and I have like nostalgia for that aesthetic, where it's almost like when grunge was really popular, I felt like I had to have my guys. So like I was into Nirvana and Soundgarden and Dinosaur Jr., and I didn't support Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam. And now, as an adult, I love to listen to Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam because it sounds like that.
That's
like I just felt like I had to be choosy at the time, but now that grunge hasn't been a thing for like 25 years, I'm just like, I like all grunge.
That's very funny.
Put on a Candlebox record. I'd love to hear it.
My grunge taste never changed. I'm with you on the Nirvana and Soundgarden, and I didn't like Alice in Chains, or who was the other one that you were all? I was
Pearl
with you
Jam.
And I don't mind Pearl Jam now. I like some of the songs, but I am not a fan. But yeah,
I love it all now. I love it. I'll listen to some Silverchair right now.
See, and there you go. I think it's analogous to my thing with the Killing Zoe. I do not look at that in the same way you do. I just can't. For me, it's not aging well.
No, it's aging terribly. I'm not gonna if someone's like 20 years old, I'm not recommending Killing Zoe to them.
Right.
But for me who grew up in that period of movies, it gives me the warm fuzzies to watch that shit.
Well, so back to the movie.
Okay. Well, let's talk about another. So he gets her to get off the train with him, which she later admits that she sort of wanted to do immediately, or when he told the grandmother story. And they start walking around. They don't know what to do at first. They're a little on the awkward side. They meet those two dudes who are they're starring in a play about a weird cow, and I love that scene. And I was stressed out the whole movie that they were going to miss the play. And they did. And I love that it comes up again at the end of the movie. Hey, we didn't go to that play.
I'm very glad that it did. I did not remember a lot of it, that in the movie. And I did not remember if they end up going to the play or not. So it was very funny to me when they not only did not go, because I was thinking about it too, but that they bring it up. That was very sweet that they were like, oh yeah, the cow.
Yeah, I love that. She says, oh, the cow? Yeah. Okay, so they stop into a record store, which is a thing you do when you're walking around a city.
Yep.
I love it. I walk around now, Henry. There's nowhere to stop in New York anymore.
Really? Is that
everything's clothing stores and restaurants? And it's if I've had lunch already. Honestly, that's what they want you to do in New York City. Have 10 meals a day.
What's the name of the store we used to buy all our stuff from? The CDs?
Yeah, that's still there. But I mean, I feel like you used to walk around and you'd happen upon bookstores or record stores.
That's what walking around in a city is for.
Yeah. You don't anymore.
That's too bad about New York. Philadelphia still has that going for it. You can still walk around in Philly, and there's a bookstore on every corner. And
there's areas. I guess if you're in the Village, there's more. Or Baltimore, is the same way. But then you go to Fells Point, and there's a lot of record and book shops and stuff.
And downtown Baltimore doesn't have any of that.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah. Anyway, they go into this record store and they go into a listening booth and they listen to a record that she's heard of but hasn't listened to. And I love a moment of two characters in silence listening to music is always beautiful to me. Watching this, I realized I believe Zach Braff ripped this scene off for Garden State.
Oh, okay. All right. I can see that.
The scene where he puts headphones on her and she listens to the Shins, and while she's listening, they look at each other. It's the same fucking thing.
It really is. And yeah. You're right. I like that scene. It was that it's one of the rare moments in the movie where there's not talking, so it kind of actually threw me off. I was sort of almost impatient. Waiting for them to get back to Gavin, but it's okay. I mean, it's a great scene, but it's very strange. It's real, but it's strange. You know what I mean? Did you catch yourself looking at the records that he was flipping through too? Who's he looking at?
Yes, absolutely. I noticed a Kinks record at one point. Yeah, I was looking around at the genres on the wall and stuff. Yeah, I do that all the time. There's this Wu-Tang show on Hulu now, and there's a lot of scenes where they're walking around a record store, and I'm just constantly trying to catch covers.
Yeah, I hear you.
Anyway, there's not a lot of music in this movie, but I think
No.
what music there is used really well. I
almost felt like
knew you'd like it. There's a lot of classical.
Yeah, there wasn't as much as I thought there would be, but I didn't even check because
what's the piece at the very beginning, Henry?
Oh Jesus!
Because I like the lead-in.
I have to hear it again. The piece at the end, I believe, is Bach on the harpsichord.
Yeah, that's the only one I recognize. It's one of the fucking Goldberg variations.
Probably, yeah. Oh, okay. But I'd have to hear it again in the beginning. You know, it was one of those movies where the music, there really isn't a lot. And, you know, for someone who loves classical music like me, and I know so much about Vienna, I kept thinking there'd be more in it. But I'm so glad there wasn't.
Henry, the true music of this film is the flow of conversation.
Well, I was very glad that there wasn't. Like, I didn't. You say there's not very much music. I would venture to say there's almost none. I mean, and I like that very much. There's nothing that we've talked about this before. This movie doesn't need any music to tell us how to feel. It's not happening. Whether it's original music or Mozart or whoever, it just happens. And I liked. You don't even notice the absence of music.
No, I mean, this movie is riveting, Henry. We just watched fucking Terminator Salvation, which is a movie about like robots fighting in a post-apocalyptic future and a band of humans trying to save the world. I'm watching that movie. I'm fucking bored. That movie was interminable. It was difficult to get through for me. And this movie, I am sitting there enraptured. When I first saw it, it was an hour and 40 minutes long. I was like, that might be a little long, because I know Before Sunset is shorter. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes or something. And then I'm just sitting there, and like by the end of it, like when the sun starts to come up again, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, well, the movie does something really amazing in that, like, the characters, this sounds so fucking cliche, but it's true. You're not thinking about the time for a lot of it, or I wasn't, but then I really, really was. Like, once they start to acknowledge that the time is of the essence, then so did I, and I was like, oh no. Like, oh my God!
For me, it's when they're dark, when it's dark out, when they go into that bar and he buys the bartender is nice enough to give him a bottle of wine and 2 glasses, which is the most unrealistic thing that happens in this movie. That's when I'm starting to get stressed out. Like, and also at that moment, I'm thinking, are they missing the play?
Well, it's just,
if I'm Ethan Hawke in this movie, I'm 100% seeing that play.
Yeah, you would. I would totally have skipped that play. I would have done whatever she wanted to do. I know myself.
Another thing that's different with me and Ethan Hawke is they kiss for the first time on the big Ferris wheel, like the touristy thing they go to.
The third man Ferris wheel.
Right. Yes. Oh my God, I didn't put that together.
Yeah, I immediately when I saw it, I thought that's what it was, and then I looked it up and I was right. That's the famous cuckoo clock speech by Orson Welles in The Third Man. But anyway, yeah.
For me, go ahead. One of my sort of love languages is like a cuddle or a handhold. Like, I like to be in contact with the person I'm with, and so like the fact that they only kiss another couple times after that, and like the idea of sex doesn't even come up until like the very end of the night, that is different from how my experience would have been. But I don't. Not that I'm complaining. I'm just saying, like, I kept watching this movie through the lens of my own life.
Well, sure. So did I. Yeah, I hear you. And
they don't touch a lot. Like, there's not a lot of hand holding. There's not a lot of like arm around the other person. It really is just like sort of wandering the streets of Vienna.
And I had thought after they kissed, there would be a lot of hand-holding, because I actually noticed that. I was like, oh, okay, well, they've breached that threshold, so now for the rest of the movie, they'll be kind of, but I think it's a very personal thing.
Yeah.
I think some couples or some people who, not even that they're a couple, but like some people, after they've kissed, they will continue the rest of that evening holding hands, and it's like an unspoken thing.
Yeah.
And some won't. But
do they have sex in this movie?
I think that's left to interpretation.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly, I didn't think they did.
I don't think they do either. It's that scene.
It says it's implied they had sexual relation. I mean, I didn't really feel that way. I mean,
they're lying down, like they're having that sort of picnic in the park there. They're on the grass and they're drinking the wine that they got from that bartender. And they are kissing and being more touchy-feely at this point, and the subject of sex comes up. And it's one of the few scenes where we cut away from. And when we when we catch up with them, they are once again walking, and it's a little bit light out. You get the sense that they're starting to make their way back to the train station.
That's right. And I took that scene as it was happening as really you could look at it as like post-coital or not. I mean, they look a little disheveled, but that's also because they've been up
all night.
Right.
They've been lying on grass, drinking wine.
Exactly. They would not look so good. And I wanted to, one of the other things I find so timely about the movie is that I think today another thing that wouldn't happen, and which is it was frustrating for me a little bit. I mean, in a good way, because that's the poetry of the movie. But when they're so determined that it's so impossible that they could meet again. And I think that's of the time too, because it's, the 90s, and again, the social media didn't exist. And I think today, if this would happen, if you met a girl in Vienna, you could be like, well, okay, we'll friend each other on Facebook. We'll talk every day. It's not going to be a big deal. And back then it's like, well, what are your options? A $500 long distance phone call or writing letters? So, I mean, it's a little more realistic.
I met a girl a while back now that I regretted like not giving my phone number to. And I literally just, I knew that she didn't drink. Mm-hmm. And so I got on Bumble and I filtered the people that they gave me to only people that didn't drink. And I found her and I super liked her. And, and that's like, if you meet somebody and don't get to talk to them, you'll find them now.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And back then that was going to be it. I mean, if they had made this, I mean, because in the audience's eyes, we haven't seen them even exchange last names, phone numbers, addresses.
They don't even exchange first names until they're off the train already.
Yeah, that's right. And so, I mean, it really would have been, I don't know how they would have found each other. I mean, I really don't know.
And the movie has I feel like the movie is supportive of that. It likes the idea of living in the present. And not spending your time planning. And the movie has a little bit of contempt for technology. There is one weird scene where Ethan Hawke is talking shit about technology, and his example is like, are you gonna fucking use that time that you save using a word processor to meditate?
Very funny. But that was actually one of the characteristics of the movie I like. It's complete and total existentialism. And one of the things about Ethan Hawke that I both related to and hated about his character in a good way, because it was realistic, but I related to him thinking about every possible thing that would go wrong in the future. And I feel like that's how I am a lot. But in terms of romantic relationships, I wanted him to be like, will you shut the fuck up and stop worrying about, in 10 years, you're not going to like me. You're going to not like my mannerisms. Because, she's defensive in that. She's kind of like, well, all right. So what's the difference? And she's more.
I like what she says is that I think I can only truly love somebody when I know all of their mannerisms and what they're about to say in any given context.
Says that later.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, when he first says it, I'm just like, dude, just shut up and enjoy the moment.
But that's the character. That's
Right.
Ethan Hawke's character, and this is going to come up again in the sequels, which is that
Yeah.
he's a dude who's in his own head and has difficulty living in the moment.
Yeah.
I want to say that I enjoyed his television idea of filming a day in the life of a normal person, and she describes it as like it's like National Geographic but with humans, and I really think that that's kind of what Richard Linklater did with Boyhood.
Maybe that's why I didn't like it so much.
I think Linklater did Ethan Hawke's idea.
I think you're right. And when it's funny because when he tells her his idea, I was excited at first when he's saying, "Oh, it's Cablevision. You know what public access is?" And she doesn't know.
Yeah.
And then he describes it, and I was with kind of like with her, where I was like, "This sounds fucking horrible."
FYI, it is a terrible idea. First of all, he's talking about like district, like it has to be constant. So you're filming for 24 hours and it's on a live feed, and it's like nobody's gonna watch that, dude. And who's airing that? Well, you need your own television station for that. You can't sell that idea.
It's the Truman Show before the Truman Show, essentially. But
Kind
it would be
of, but they're aware of it. It's
right.
more like the I don't know, the real world.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah. And that's true actually. And that's when that show was also really big. But yeah, so I thought that was funny. And I also thought it was a funny scene because
It's kind of Reality Bites. It's the premise of Reality Bites.
is it?
Yeah, it's one of the characters is constantly holding a video camera and filming his friends for a documentary.
And I actually liked Ethan Hawke's delivery of that little soliloquy of an idea because he still doesn't know who she is, and he's awkward and more unsure of his delivery. He's rambling very fast and he's uncomfortable, and as the movie progresses, that's one of the cool things about his performance is he gets so much more at ease as you do.
Yeah.
In that situation. Like at first I'm like, dude, slow the fuck down. And she's awkward too, but not as loquacious, and I like that.
Yeah,
that touch.
She's a little quieter. Like this American's gonna yap at me for a second, and I'm gonna let him.
Very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
right, Henry. So yeah, we reach the end of the movie. They get to the train station. They suddenly decide they have to see each other again, and she says, "Let's meet here." I love that she suggests meeting here again in 5 years, and he's like, "What? That's too long." Yeah. I mean, this is seconds after they were talking about never seeing each other again, and now she's saying 5 years, and he's like, "That's forever."
Exactly, and I like that, and I actually thought it would be 1 year. That they'd agree, and then they say 6 months, which is completely like a doable thing. But she
says it's gonna be so cold, and he's like, "Who cares?"
And I also like though that I don't know if this is intentional, but it went through my mind like how much of an endeavor it is to go overseas to travel. So he even throws in like 6 months. Yeah. Oh, okay. I mean, I can come over here, and it's a little involved.
Yeah, he says it's a train ride for you. It's a lot for me to get out here, but I'm gonna be here.
But I'll do it. But it's kind of like, ooh, yeah, he's already thinking like maybe subconsciously, because in the moment I think he wants nothing more than to come back. But I think there's the back of his brain is going, holy fuck, this is an endeavor to come over here in 6 months, But it's very painful and beautiful, but it's stressful because you really feel the immediacy of the train leaving. And
yes, I was so stressed out she was going to miss the train.
God, well, I was just stressed out because, I think in a lesser movie, she'd run off the train. And they'd, you know what I mean? Something like that would happen, but that's just never going to happen. That's not going to happen. And
no, it has a much better ending. We catch up with them on each of their respective solo train journeys. And first we see Ethan Hawke, and then we see Julie Delpy, and they're both sort of still living in that bubble in their brains. And we see, it could be a really cliche moment of just the two. They could show them and they're smiling, and that's the end of the movie. But you can see a lot going through their brains. The performances are really good. And I will say that his is a little bit just sitting back, closing his eyes and thinking, whereas hers, you can see 1,000 emotions cross her face in that 10 seconds of screen time. And that's the moment I decided Julie Delpy's my MVP.
Ah, okay. Yeah, because I love that sequence too, because all I was thinking about when they showed those two in their respective things was that my mind would be racing with thoughts. You would be completely taken up by what you just experienced. There's no way you'd be thinking about anything else. And they capture that without speaking. Both of them do. And I've vacillated so much back and forth on MVP that I was going to do a tie. But I figure we have 2 more movies to go. So I'm going to be just switching off. So I'm going to go with Mr. Ethan Hawke here for my MVP.
I'm okay with it. And then after that, I love what we see. We go around. It's like a little montage of all the places in Vienna where they were that are now empty. And I particularly like the shot of the park that they were drinking in, and you see the empty glasses and wine bottle on the grass.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Oh, man, nice catch. I didn't notice that. What I was thinking about when they showed those empty scenes is I was thinking about his little speech to her on the grass when he said, "I've never been anywhere where I haven't been." Like, it's kind of sophomoric, what he's telling her. It's not very deep, but he's like, "I'm always present for everything I'm present for." And so when they're showing those things, it's like showing that these things are going to go on.
Right.
Now there'll be new people in these sequences. And yeah. So anyway, 5 stars.
Or also that these places hold such amazing iconography for them in their lives now, whereas they're just normal places that thousands of people go to every day.
That's true. Even the Cemetery of the Nameless and
I loved that scene. Fuck, we didn't talk about that one. There's not a wasted second in this movie. I really love this movie, and I was expecting to go into this project giving this one a 4 and the sequels a 5. I always preferred the sequels, but this is a 5.
It's a 5-star movie, yeah. I mean, I figured I'd go into it giving it a 5, and I was not wrong, but I just loved it even more.
And the end held extra meaning to me, Henry, because the closing credits song, which I did not remember, is a cover of a Daniel Johnston song, and Daniel Johnston passed away this week, and I was very sad about that. That guy had a hard life, and I hope that he is resting peacefully. I don't know, but that song "Living Life" is a really beautiful song, and I was so moved by that end scene of the movie. I watched this movie at work, by the way. And I'm choked up at work, and then that song came up, and I was just losing it.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, that would have a tremendous impact, I would imagine. Yeah, I didn't have that connection. Yeah, I don't have an LVP then. I really don't, man. I mean,
yeah, I'll go Sloss, but whatever. I mean, it's a total joke, whatever.
Yeah. Right, and honestly, my MVP really is a tie. I just went with Ethan because you went with Julie Delpy. I mean, I just wanted to we'll both give him credit. I mean, but the whole movie, I was vacillating. There's nobody that is better than the other one. Maybe in the next 2, I'll find that.
I was even trying to come up with some of these bit characters, and I was like, did one of them not work in their scene where they pour? I was like, what about that belly dancer they run into, or the palm reader or the poet? But I love all those people.
I love the poet.
The bartender is so that I love that scene. Yeah.
I love the poet. I also love Ethan Hawke's kind of throwaway line that's almost inaudible when he walks before the poem is given to them, and he's like, I kind of like this variation on a Viennese bum.
Yes, yeah, I like that too. Okay, Henry, what a beautiful week of movies. Really, really made me care about movies again 1 week after watching 2 Terminator sequels.
Yes, I was happy to cover this, and I was happy that it kind of just popped into my head. Obviously it had been on our radar, but I have one superhero count.
Oh God, who is it? Oh wait, I think I know this. Wasn't Julie Delpy in something?
Now, do you know what it was? Because it shocked me, and
I think
still
it's a
don't.
Marvel movie.
It is. You're right.
Was it?
I don't remember.
I don't know. Tell me.
And I've seen this movie 3 times. Avengers: Age of Ultron. She plays a character named Madame B.
Yeah, man. Oh, you know what I think that is? I think that's Sokovia. You know, all the Sokovia shit.
Okay.
I think in the beginning when they're like infiltrating Sokovia,
Yeah.
I think she pops up.
Oh, all right. Okay. That's it.